Pleasant good morning to everyone. Welcome once again to another episode of the Carlos Brown Show, heard exclusively right here on the Open Mic Broadcast Network and Spreaker.com every Saturday from 10 a.m. to 12 noon Central Standard Time. Today's guest menu looks like this. Dr. Michael Prince will join me talking swag baseball, among other topics I'm sure that we will get into. And I'm sure we will agree to agree and we'll agree to disagree on some things, but it's all in the spirit of love. Trust me on that one. And then Charles Edmond joins me in hour number 2 on the Swag Baseball Report. A lot to talk about as far as the conference, as far as baseball. So stay tuned. Should be very interesting. Here's what's trending on the Carlos Brown Show. Alabama State's Titus Howard, 23rd pick of round 1 by the Houston Texans from Alabama State. Congratulations to the young man. If you looked on social media, a very humble guy and appreciative of the opportunity. I believe he's going to make the best of that opportunity. Janetta Hayes resigns as Texas Southern's women's basketball coach to become the next head women's coach at the University of Maryland, Baltimore County. I'm going to see what Dr. Prince knows about this. This kind of caught me off guard. But, hey, she moves on. I'm thinking from the outside looking in that she left the program in a good place. And that's all you can ask for. Continue with coaches. Mississippi Valley State announces that Lindsey Hunter is the new men's basketball coach at Mississippi Valley State. Congratulations to Lindsey Hunter, a former Jackson State basketball player and in the professional basketball of the NBA. Now gets an opportunity to lead Mississippi Valley State. So congratulations to Lindsey Hunter. Then last, Grambling State University in baseball in 7 innings defeated Southern University yesterday 12-0. Now we will see how this team responds to some adversity. They've had some adversity throughout the season, but let's see how they respond this time. And maybe, just maybe, it's a time to say, hey, whoa, hold up just a minute. We've made plenty of progress, we meaning Southern University, but we still have to go out and get it done. And speaking of swag baseball, there's just some tremendous games going on this weekend. Prairie View A&M and Texas Southern, Jackson State and Alabama State, and, of course, the game I just mentioned, Grambling State and Southern University. And maybe quietly as it's been kept, I don't know. Maybe I should use some more terms, but Jackson State on a tremendous roll. And I know it pains me to say this, but they can I'll make a claim that, hey, we're the top in the Southwestern Athletic Conference. And so that leads me maybe a bit premature, but you're at the end of the conference as of next week. Then you start talking about the swag baseball tournament. I want to hear from you, your swag baseball tournament. Who's your pick? Who's your favorite to win it all? Also, still some feedback from last week's interview with Dr. McClellan and Roman Banks, the Director of Athletics at Southern University, and Dr. McClellan, who joined me last week on the Carlos Brown Show. So we can talk about that as well. But let me do this. I want to say good morning now to the good doctor, brother Michael Prince. Sir, how are you?
I'm doing well, brother. How are you, man?
Well, I'm doing good. I'm living. I I woke up this morning. Today is a day, April 27th. That's always a special day. My best friend's mother's birthday is today, and my mother's birthday. Now, Dr. Prince, my mother left on her birthday, this earth. She left 2009. So she would have been 82 years old today on this physical place. So I know a lot of people have lost parents. Some will lose parents if they haven't lost a parent. But it is a humbling experience, but it's also an experience that you'll never forget. And the Creator blessed me to have me by her side when she left this earth. And I often have stated that was the most kindest act for me to be able to be there by her side when she journeyed. So today is always a special day. So thanks for everybody letting me just share that moment.
You every time I listen to you, brother, I'm more and more appreciative of your brotherhood, your friendship, and just your spirit. My pop's birthday was the 24th of this month as well.
Mm-hmm.
And he passed January 15, 2003. So I know exactly where you are on that. Unfortunately, my brother-in-law is being laid rest today.
My goodness.
50 years old, man.
Wow.
And, so I feel you, man. I feel you 1,000%. And to God be the glory, and when all the dust settles, it's really all about family. It's about trying to be the very best individual that you can be. And it's about trying to leave this place in a little bit better shape than when you entered with your honest efforts and whatever it is that you do in life.
Yeah, well said. And I know the feeling, and I appreciate it. My thoughts and prayers are with you and your family. It's always a situation that's tough, but it's one that we all must go through.
Yes, sir.
And so
yes, sir.
We do it, and we live to see another day, and try to enjoy the day because tomorrow's not promised.
Absolutely.
So, with that being said, on our trending comments, get your thoughts on that. Titus Howard, a happy young man, the 23rd pick of the Houston Texans, offensive lineman from Alabama State. On social media, just seeing how humble he was, but appreciative and happy. And I believe he's going to make the best of his opportunity.
You know what? It's so refreshing to see a young man like this that you always knew he was a huge guy whenever you watch him. Like, man, who is that? But then to see it transition to this next level. And then it's so contrasting that the Texan fans are in an uproar because they don't know who this kid is. That's how important what we do about what we do, because no one wants to tell our story thoroughly. And so they're talking about, you guys picked a first-round pick from the SWAC? They didn't realize that this guy was the top 50 projected picks in the entire draft. They forget about the Jackie Slaters. They forget about the Walter Paytons. They forget about the Jerry Rices. All they look at the SWAC. And that's why we need to do better in endorsing each other. We need to do better. I'm not going to get on no soapbox this morning, man, but I'm extremely proud. I'm SWAC proud of Brother Titus. And he has the perfect name because he is huge as a giant, and they call him Titus.
And you're right about that.
Yes, sir.
And just looking how he did, the combine, and hey, he's going to make the most of his opportunity. And I think everyone in this conference, the MEAC, and fans all over, I think they're going to get behind this young man. So I am very proud of him. Now the hard work begins.
Yes, sir.
He showcased himself. Now he comes in with the right spirit, and you come in and absorb and learn as much as you can, because now you're getting paid and you're going up against competition that's going to be at its highest level. But the right heart, the right mind, the right spirit, and the right work ethic, he'll make it.
You know what? He's going to make it with flying colors, and he's going to come in there with a SWAC chip on his shoulder. And every time he pancakes somebody, long as he's not pancaking a Pittsburgh Steeler, I'm all right with it. But every time he pancakes someone, he said, "Yeah, that's for SWAC Nation. That's for SWAC Nation."
That's right. Be humbled.
Yes.
But also be hungry.
Yes, sir. And you can't help but be hungry, Carlos, when you're coming from where we come from. And understanding that the deck is slightly stacked against you. Well, let's be honest, it's majorly stacked against you. And to give these fans some humble pie and say, take that, eat it, and I'll even add the whipped cream and cherry on top so it can go down even easier for you.
And amen. And he can talk to a brother, Terrence Armstead.
Yes.
From the University of Arkansas Pine Bluff with the Saints. I heard, I heard some of the same conversations, quote unquote, by local media in Baton Rouge. Who is that? Who is he? Where did he play? Oh my, he's a project. He's going to need some time. Some injuries. But other than that, man, one of the top left tackles in the game.
That's what I'm talking about, man. So we still got a lot of work to do, which is why I wake up with a smile on my face every morning, despite what your critics may think or say. For me, at least, I'm doing this with the fuel of passion to make sure that we get the proper story out, be it good, bad, or ugly, but the truth must prevail itself and shall prevail itself. And if you're staying consistent and you beat your drum consistent and long enough, someone will begin to hear it and tune in. And that's all I'm saying. Brother Howard, go out there, man, get it done. SWAC Nation, MEAC Nation, go out there, get it done. Any HBCU connected program, go out there, get it done. You have one time to make a first impression, blow the hinges off the door, and bring back the gold.
And how ironic. His first professional game will be in the Superdome on Monday night against your second favorite team, the
Saints. Man, I almost had me choke over here talking about my second favorite team.
No. Oh, yes.
See, you picking fights already, man. It's early in the program, and you already picking fights.
Well, that's what I do, but it's in love. It's in the spirit of love.
I love you too, brother.
Yes, sir. Coach Hayes resigns at Texas Southern and now becomes the next head women's coach of the University of Maryland, Baltimore County. Did that catch you off guard, or had you been hearing some things under the bush?
I think it was a case of chicken gone wrong. That's what I think. A case of chicken gone wrong. A good negotiator is always trying to find the next best deal. And you go in there, you fish. And see, part of Texas Southern's history, they played this chicken game so many times with Mike Davis. He would go out there and dangle a carrot, flirting with a new potential would-be employer, and he'd go back and always get him a little increase and a bump. Well, I'm not there. I don't know, but it looks like that maybe that's what Coach Hayes, tried, going out there to Baltimore, Maryland, and end up that's where she is now. Because when you look at it, she was in a comfortable position. She had been at Texas Southern 6 years. She'd done some marvelous things, 2 championships in her run, always a competitive program. And no matter who was coaching my beloved Panthers, she always seemed to have our number. And she seemed to have it all together. But one thing about it, she's going to the American East Conference, which this conference, their thing is basketball. Even though the Retriever, which is where she's at right now, that's their mascot, they're somewhat of the bottom dwellers. They were like 3-13 in conference play, 10-20 overall. They were number 8 out of the 9 spot. So when you look across the paper and you see the work that Janetta Hayes has put in, and you see a program that's struggling, maybe she can get a little bit more money. She's in a conference that's going to be somewhat, to the eyes of the quote-unquote beholder, slightly better play in SWAC than the SWAC conference. So this could be an opportunity for her to make her next step up to another, prestigious program.
Well, I'm going to call this person, we'll say Jack H.
Okay.
Guru of women's basketball. He said, hey, the SWAC coaches knew, because I knew 5 days in advance. We were just waiting for her to announce it publicly.
Right. Well,
interesting.
Like I said, they were talking. Mm-hmm. They were talking, and some are speculating that maybe she was trying to do this to get a little bit more money, and that wasn't the case. Texas Southern said, "Hey, this is the glass ceiling right here. If you got a better opportunity, God bless you, and thank you for your service." And that's that's the business part of it, and that's what fans have to remember. We get attached or detached to coaches. And really, you're sort of supporting the coach, but you're going to be supporting your program, your team. And whoever they get to come and lead the cavalry, you just want them to be successful. If Jerry Lewis, is leading your program, okay, Jerry Lewis, when your jokes are over with, can you get us some wins on the board? So I think that's the emotional part of athletics. Some people are going to always take it personal. Some are going to say, why y'all let her go? Some are going to say, I'm glad she's gone. So it's hot or cold either way.
It's interesting. I pulled up her information, her meaning Coach Janetta Hayes. As you stated, 6 years at the helm at Texas Southern University, led Texas Southern to a pair of 20-win seasons and 4 postseason appearances. The Lady Tigers won 3 regular season championships, 2014-15, 15-16, 16/17 during her tenure. Also, prior to her time in Houston, she spent 2 years on Coach Cynthia Cooper Dykes, staff at UNC Wilmington as an assistant coach, during which the team put together back-to-back 20-win seasons. Hayes, a 4-year letter winner at Rice University, and a first-team All-WAC player in 2003. Also served as the head coach at Wiley, Texas College, and Houston, Texas native. Wow, will be the 9th head coach at UMBC, as they're affectionately known as University of Maryland, Baltimore County. So, is that a lateral move, or is it a move up for Coach Hayes?
Well, depending on your career track, and if you have some greater aspirations, it's sometimes, and this is going to probably sound crazy, sometimes people will stay at a place too long because their comfort. And maybe it was time. Okay, I've been here for 6 years. I've reached everything that I could reach here a couple of times. Let me go to a new challenge to prove my worth and to create another opportunity for me to add on to my legacy. And this could be one of those cases.
Well, we wish Coach Hayes the best in her move onto University of Maryland, Baltimore County. and just getting a chance to see her, at least once a year, come into Baton Rouge FG Clark Activity Center, always handled herself very well, courtside, and teams were always competitive. And it was just night in, night out. When those two teams got together, it was a tremendous matchup. I'm sure Texas Southern, as we speak, they're moving swiftly, not in a hurry, but moving swiftly to name replacement. Lindsey Hunter. Now, I remember Lindsey Hunter. I remember at Jackson State, that great year when they defeated Connecticut in the NIT. That same year, Southern University defeated Georgia Tech in the NCAA tournament with Ben Jobe. Now Lindsey Hunter is now the head men's basketball coach at Mississippi Valley State. And when these things happen, you know the person. You can look at, where he's coached, where is he coming from, how much experience. In this case, I simply just say I wish Coach Hunter and Mississippi Valley State the best, and hopefully this works out, because if it works out, not only is it good for Mississippi Valley State, but it's also good for the conference.
I would agree, but all are not excited at Mississippi Valley.
How come I knew you were going to say that?
Man, they have been in an uproar on talk radio all week about this hire. Some of them think it's a Band-Aid situation for something that requires stitches. And they are in an uproar. You have to understand Jackson State to Valley is what Jackson State is to you in Southern. And you're talking about crossing enemy lines. And there were other qualified applicants who had Mississippi Valley ties and alumni. And Valley Nation were thinking that this was just a political move, or a publicity move, I should say, because of the 17-year tenure, the name of Lindsey Hunter. But they don't. It's almost like they don't trust the move. They're like, as soon as he gets here and gets any type of success, he's going to take the next thing smoking for a better opportunity. And that's what the game is about. And going back to that fan emotional tie to their program, they would rather tie in, at least for a little while, with an alumni, long suffer through them while they build a program, while they believe Lindsey Hunter is going to be there to build a team. And there's a difference between the two. Yeah, he'll be able to pull some razzle-dazzle for a couple of years, and they're saying they're trying to address this situation with a microwave when it really requires a crock pot approach and let it simmer and grow.
I can understand the bigger issue, underlying issues in this case, but I wonder if there's some success early on with some of those quote-unquote fans who are skeptical of this hire or don't like it. Can I put it that way? Will it kind of change their minds?
Well, it's like a relationship, Carlos. Winning.
You got to nurture it.
Yeah, winning cures everything. Winning cures everything, right? But in the back of their mind, they're going like, okay, this is nice, but they're about to leave us sooner or later. And then it becomes, instead of what should be nurturing, it becomes pragmatic, man, and it becomes where you been, who you been with, let me check your phone, and all that kind of stuff. You're like, wait a minute, I don't need all that. I've been faithful. I've brought home the money. I've brought home the wins. I've done everything right. Why don't you trust me? And it could be because sometimes people are so used to getting burned, and they just know it's just a matter of time before the next match is struck.
Wow. Well, that kind of reminds me of a relationship. You come in with that mindset, you're not going to have success if you're coming in with just thinking of it in negative terms right off the bat. Let's see what happens. Because now I want to just kind of use as if I can, a point of reference. You remember last week, Brother Prince, when I kind of came at Coach Banks about Coach Jackson and his contract?
Right.
And you kind of remember what he said? He was like, look, I'm a paraphrase. If somebody from the Sun Belt comes, or let's say North Texas comes, and they can offer more, they're going to get him. I'm just going to try to put together the best position to Coach Jackson, and hopefully that'll be enough. But if someone really wants him from a bigger institution, what can I really do?
You really can't. You really can't. And I think that's why in the back of the minds of, and it's not just Valley, it's everyone, especially on our tier, that wants the best for their alma mater. They want the best for their program. You want somebody who you feel has that emotional tie in the event that someone with a deeper pockets can come and say, hey, come over here and do this for us. But they want to believe, at least on the paper, on the surface, that because of their loyalty and their attachment to their alma mater, that they would stand pat. But that's not necessarily the case either, because everything is temporarily, even when it's great. So you in there, you coaching is a profession that you walk in with your eyes wide open by choice, because you could be the darling this year and be on the hit list next year. And so if you got an opportunity to go and make $1 million and you're at your alma mater making $100,000, and as much as I love Prairie View, I eat, sleep, think, drink Prairie View. Okay. But if I can do the same thing for $1 million, you ought to be happy for me, Prairie View, because now that $100,000 that you were paying me, I could possibly give you $100,000 a year with the salary that I now make.
That's called giving back.
Yeah.
And DC says, to the point, I think maybe this is what you were saying as well, it is highly unlikely Lindsey Hunter will have any real level of success unless Mississippi Valley State University has had a major influx of financial support. That is not taking place. So that's the big picture.
That's the huge picture.
They don't have the resources. So I'll still stick to what I said. I wish him the best, and I wish Mississippi Valley State the best. Knowing the situation and knowing what they're going through, it's going to be tough. I mean, that's all I can say. Hopefully,
you're right. It was really, if you look at it, the stars were aligned properly. Mm-hmm. Here you have Lindsey Hunter. He's been an assistant. This will be his first, if I'm not mistaken, head coaching job. Okay. He's a SWAC product.
Well, on the collegiate level.
Right. Yeah, on the collegiate level. I'm sorry. I should have said that. He was a SWAC native son. Although he went to Jackson State, he's from Mississippi, so he somewhat understands the area. It's a shot in the arm and a splash for Valley's brand, because, who would be talking about Valley basketball right now in the off season? You fired Payne a couple of weeks ago, a month ago, and that was the news, and you hadn't even thought about Valley basketball since until the Lindsey hire. So if you hadn't done anything, at least you have created conversation at the water cooler about your brand. Now, I think it's a project that will last 2 years, 3 years max, and then they'll go their separate ways. That's whether he has success or not. I just believe that's what's going to happen. That's what's going to unfold.
Well, it's going to be interesting to follow the situation, no matter how short it may be, how long-term it may be, which is not probably going to happen. But a tough situation.
And one other thing, Carlos, real quick. He has enough financial connections that he could possibly help stimulate Valley basketball program at least.
Well, you said basketball.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, if the truth be told, Valley should focus on basketball.
Yeah, because they have an athletic department, they have athletic programs, they have other sports, but it's a tough situation. I understand that.
Yes, sir.
It's very tough. So any small, minute success that they have, I hope they get it.
Yes.
Now, speaking of success, now, in the group text message, that's another great thing you can have with your phone. Grambling State took Southern to the woodshed. 12-0. And I stated that I'm not surprised going up to the metropolis of Grambling, Louisiana. And by the way, let me stop right here on a serious note. And thoughts and prayers go out to that community.
Yes.
In the Ruston, Louisiana. Believe it or not, I've never been to Ruston,
really,
Louisiana.
Nice little quaint town.
As I've stated, North Louisiana, South Louisiana, totally different. But I'll be nice and save that for another time. But what happened up there? Facilities at Louisiana Tech, Grambling State, Grambling, Louisiana, very close to Ruston. No damage, but Louisiana Tech and Ruston, 2 people lost their lives. So our thoughts and prayers go out to that whole area, Ruston / Grambling and North Central Louisiana.
Yes,
now,
sir.
Back to what I was going to talk about. I was not surprised that Southern lost because it's tough going up in Grambling and playing them in any sport. It's a huge rivalry. But I was surprised at 12-0. Now, let me back up a little bit. Southern took the series from Grambling in Baton Rouge, but boy, they had to come back 2 of those 3 games. And so I knew it was going to be tough. And Southern's had some adversity through the season. Texas Southern, even last weekend against Texas Southern. I mean, 1-run game. Look, Brother Prince, you talk about teams that go after each other. Texas Southern and Southern, and baseball. And you can look at the 6 games that they've played. They've been tough. So with all of that being said, all of the success, Southern predicted to finish last. In first place, now hanging on to first place. This next 2 games, and then next week, Southern at Prairie View, close out the conference season. They're going to have to earn it. And that means on the road, today and tomorrow, and then next weekend.
Absolutely. That's the way it should be done.
Mm-hmm.
That's the way it should be done.
And sometimes you can measure a team not by how much success. Everybody's on the bandwagon. Everybody is happy. And I'm not saying anybody's jumping off, but it has been quite surprisingly smooth sailing, except for a few bumps in the road. Now, how does this team respond to some adversity starting today?
Well, that's always the measure and the difference between being a winner and being a champion. A lot of people are content on being known and recognized as a winner, but it takes a little bit extra to push yourself to be recognized as a champion. And if you've listened to me long enough, I don't get excited over lopsided defeats that happen. That happens in baseball, and that's why baseball is a unique sport, especially for me. You could have a game where you lose like today or yesterday, 12-0. I'm a huge St. Louis Cardinal fan. They lost last night to Cincinnati 12-1. Got the doors blown off of them. But with baseball, man, hey, you forget it to start today, and you watch how they respond and monitor today.
Yeah, I like got to wait a whole week.
Yes, sir. It's not like football where you have to wait 7 days in between, and that thing gets bitter and more bitter each day because you don't have anything to compensate to get it off your mind. And so I'm sure that Coach Jackson has gotten with his guys. He said, guys, forget about this as fast as you can because we got to start back tomorrow whenever the first pitch is scheduled, and you go from there. Today will determine, in my opinion, who will be the Western Division champion between Grambling and Southern. Whoever wins today are going to set the tone, and I think it's going to give them enough to cross the finish line. That's just from my baseball observation.
Yeah, thanks, listener Mike. I always say one of a huge Alcorn State fan. He says JSU baseball, and I said earlier, quietly talked about, but hey, Jackson State's getting it done.
Yeah, oh man, Omar Jackson.
No matter what I feel about Jackson State, I've got to give my opinion, of course. But hey, I can't see.
It's not going to stop the facts, though, baby. It's not going to stop the facts.
That's right.
Omar Jackson is one of the top baseball minds, and I'm not going to say and just keep him restricted to the Southwestern Athletic Conference, but I'm going to say in collegiate Division I baseball across the board. What people are not realizing, and you might not like this because it's Jackson State facts, but they're operating with 8 scholarships. You have 11.7. He's doing this with 8 scholarships. Omar has always been able to come over adversity. I say he has that little big man complex. He is a fiery leader. He fights for his players. He fights for his organization, and he does it the right way, man. And Jackson State, you can never count them out. He finds and gets the most out of his pitchers, no matter if the kid is throwing 72 or 92. He knows when to pull the triggers, and he has done this consistently. See, a flash in the pan, you might have a good team, but Omar Jackson has built a great program at Jackson State.
Yeah, you have to give credit where credit is due. A lot of people are talking and discussing about SWAC baseball. Of course, the tournament is fast approaching, albeit we've had Coach Carlos James talking about maybe the conference schedule starting a little bit, pushing it back, but even a week or 2 weeks, and then it won't be that much downtime as far as the tournament. Excuse me. Now, speaking of SWAC baseball tournament, now let's kind of switch a little bit quickly. And talking with Dr. McClellan last week, and I mentioned about SWAC baseball tournament. I got the impression, I got the opinion, just by listening to him, that for one, it's all about financial stability as far as the future tournaments of football, basketball, and baseball. Didn't you get the same feeling?
Oh, no doubt. And he made it perfectly clear that we're not going to pay to bring our championships to anyone. So if we're there, there's some type of compensation being achieved.
So with that being said, someone were asking me after the show, I said, it's going to be in New Orleans this year. But now, past 2019, and I'm not a betting man, but I don't think it will be in New Orleans unless New Orleans comes up with a package that is so outstanding that the conference will say, hey, we're back there. And the other big news he released was that hiring Coach Roger Cato as a SWAC baseball tournament consultant.
Yes. Yes.
Now, we know Coach Cato can sell you property on the moon.
Right.
And he'll pay for you to get there. With all that being said, it's going to be very interesting to see which city puts together the best package. And I would think, Brother Prince, that there will be numerous cities.
There are a couple of cities that I've been hearing. There are a couple of cities I've been.
Okay, do you mind throwing them out?
Sure, throw it out. Biloxi, Mississippi has been one.
I've heard that one.
Memphis, Tennessee has been one. Of course, New Orleans is in the mix. There have been whispers of perhaps even trying to attempt Shreveport again. And one other that escapes me right now. I personally, think that either one would be great. I've always been one for centralized locations. And if you can find the best centralized location that's going to appreciate the brand that would be. Oh, there was also talking about going back to Birmingham, Alabama. And so you got these 4 cities that are bidding for the services of being able to provide the baseball hospitality for the championship. So I want somewhere that's going to be centrally located that's going to make it, even if my team is not there, a good trip for me to go and look and support my conference baseball championship. We're fortunate enough. We'll be at the SWAC Baseball Championship, the Open Mic Broadcast Network. So if you want to slide on to the Big Easy, man, for a couple hours or so, we got room for you on the mic. And it's just going to be a grandioso time. But with all that being said, it boils down to the money. It boils down to the money, and you have to create opportunities where it could be win-win financially. Now, you're not going to make the money at a baseball tournament that you could make at a basketball or football championship event, but you can make money when properly structured. And there's going to be an announcement at 4 o'clock, Carlos, this Monday at 4 o'clock, because there's been some news about a couple other teams that are ineligible for the baseball tournament. We knew about Alabama A&M's challenges, but now the recent deal is that Mississippi Valley has become ineligible for the baseball tournament. So what that does, it makes the 8-team invite imbalanced, because now you would only have 3 teams from the East and the 4 from the West. So there are all kind of rumors spinning around right now. There's the scenario of possibly letting Pine Bluff enter into the tournament, going over to represent the East, or there's been possibilities of dropping it to the top 3 teams and letting it go that way. And then there's even talking about then give the top seed a bye and let everybody else fight it out. So there are so many scenarios, but the water will become clear on Monday at 4 p.m. And I'll be waiting with bated breath. And if you are anticipating as we are, then you could also follow us on Twitter at The Mike Prince Show, and we'll release it as soon as it gets released.
It's going to be, and thanks for the information, Charles Edmond texted me this week and said the same thing about Valley. I'm interested to see about the bye. I think going to the top 3 teams from each division, which I remember a time when it was a 6-team tournament.
Right. That's when
the fun we had with Coach Kador.
It was only 8 teams in the conference at that time, too.
Yeah, but somehow, I don't know. I think it would probably be some complaining going on if you went down to 6.
They're going to complain whatever happens, man, but complaining is part of leadership. You have to let that roll off your back like a duck, and you have to do what's going to be best for the conference.
And that is why that's a good point. I'll wait till Monday and see what happens.
You and I both.
Somebody getting a bye.
That's not good for baseball.
Interesting. Yeah, someone's gonna be unhappy either way.
Well, it pushes. Here's where the rubber meets the road for me. If we're going to be talking about, we know that 2% of our student athletes across the board, whether they're in a Power Five or HBCU, are going to make it to the professional ranks. And what has been the legacy of HBCUs is that we've always pushed our student athletes. Yeah, you go out there and do the very best that you can do out there on the field, but you make it happen in their classroom because that's the game you'll be playing for the rest of your life. And we can't continue, in my opinion, to reward mediocrity, and I think you should raise the stakes and take the top three teams because in reality, in most cases, there is not a big difference between your 4 and 5 seed. It's really not. And there's not that much a difference between your 3 and 4, but at least you are rewarding consistency and excellence, if you would. If I know that all I got to do is be better than one team and I'm in, where's the drive? Where's the measuring stick? If I know I got 3 spots to fight for and there's 5 of us, I believe it increases your intensity. You're going to get the maximum out of them because sometimes at some point, and I'm not accusing anyone of this, if you know you're going to make it in, man, sometimes you put it on reverse and kind of cruise through and try to position yourself for the tournament. Yeah, this is over. Let's just get to the tournament and see what we can do. And I think you need to keep it intense because you're devaluing the regular season.
Yeah, and once again, like most, you remember when it was 6 teams.
Yeah.
And
I played when it was 6 teams.
That would be my vote, but again, I don't have a vote, just my opinion. Because the point you also made is the one that I made years ago. When it went from 6 to 8 teams. Basketball. What's the difference between 9 and 10? Not much at all. Then if that's the case, let everybody in. Or if you don't let everybody in, then when there's too many teams, too many.
And I get it that they want the student athlete to have an experience, but here's how you can accommodate that.
And that's what you're going to hear.
Yeah, but here's how you accommodate that. You're talking about an ultimate motivator. I don't care if it's the football championship, basketball tournament, baseball tournament. You have an all-conference banquet the night before, inviting all teams and coaches or whatever to come to this banquet, right? You give out your Player of the Year awards, and you let them have that experience that way. And then the motivation is, man, I want to be playing that game the next day. And if that don't push you to go out and get better, do better, work a little bit harder, nothing else will. But the problem is we're raising a bunch of T babies, and you know what the T is, and they take this privileged mentality out into the work world, and they get hit with the harsh realities. Baby, ain't nobody just gonna give you nothing because you showed up. You got to earn it. And what better example to set than at our HBCUs?
Well, the conversation we had a few weeks ago, 4 teams, top 2 teams. One of these, one has 2 out of 3.
Yeah.
But it's going to be interesting now that Mississippi Valley State is ineligible, Alabama and them. So they get paid the big bucks. Let's see what decision they make Monday.
Right.
My vote would be for 6 teams.
Mm-hmm.
My vote would be 6 teams permanent. But anyway, hey,
I would be you and I would be in agreement with this scenario. I just think it sets for a better atmosphere for the tournament. It just makes everything work. And I understand. I get it. But at some point, every kid can't make the honor roll. Every kid
Nope.
can't make, and they won't make the honor roll. Doesn't mean they're a bad student. They just didn't have what it takes to be recognized on the honor roll or the president's list.
And then the next year, maybe they do, or the next semester, or the next grading period. And thus, when we were talking about 6 teams, it was truly a double elimination.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yes, I got to come out. I came out the loser bracket. My goodness, I got to whip this team twice.
Yeah, and you that is earning it.
Cases it did happen.
That is earning it. I had an old baseball coach, assistant coach Raymond Burgess, rest his soul, at Prairie View, and one of the most inspirational men that I've ever met in my entire life. In fact, Raymond Burgess, I know, kept a mini brother held together on the Prairie View baseball teams that I played on. And he went to Prairie View in 1969. He had a child, so he dropped out and, went and took care of his family. But he came back to Prairie View as a grad assistant to Coach Tankersley to work and get his degree. And they used to call me Big Dog. He said, Big Dog, he said, if you don't ever do anything else, you need to attend a Prairie View graduation. I said, well, what I need to do that for, Coach? I need to just do that when He said, no. He said, son, that will motivate you to work even harder. It'll motivate you to keep focused and know why you're here. And that's the example I'm talking about with this tournament, by not letting everybody come in. Yeah, you let them get down there, get a taste of it, what it's like. This is what happens when hard work pays off. When you put in the time, but just to lay it out there and you think because I rolled out of bed and I showed up, it's supposed to automatically happen. That's a perception. That's not reality.
Yeah, and more of a reward for a team winning the regular season,
right,
and doing well. We've had this discussion many times, even with basketball and a one-bid league. And speaking of one-bid league, looking at some statistics from yesterday's ball game, Graham State, in the next hour, we're going to go through the other scores in the conference. But Graham State, 12 runs on 10 hits, no errors. Southern University, no runs, only 3 hits, 1 error. Brian Delgado for Graham State was the winning pitcher, 6-2 on the season. Losing pitcher for the Jaguars, Jerome Bohannon, 3-4 on the season. And Graham State, after 1 inning, they're up 5-0. After 3, they're up 11-0, and pretty much Katie Boys are doing the 4th inning. They added a run. So after 7 innings, the game was called. They don't need to go any further.
The mercy rule.
Yeah, and as was talked about in this first hour, it's an opportunity to learn, to be humbled, but then also an opportunity. It's not like football where you have to wait another week and you got to think about it. Basketball, you may have a couple of days, and then you in the conference, you have a day to think about it in between the next game. In baseball, you get a chance to get better the next game, which is the next day. And when you look at a sneak peek at the conference, Southern 14-4 in conference, only a game ahead of Grambling State. And sometimes it's what's the saying? It's a thin line. Mm-hmm. This is a thin line. Southern has played outstanding for pretty much the most part.
Out the gate, they jumped out the gate on a roll.
And sometimes it's also that added pressure of staying at a certain level, being chased. You're being the hunted. Grambling State. And I remember one of the statements you made to me early on. You said, I don't have to see about Grambling State because usually what they do, they tend to what? Fade.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so now, lo and behold, and if I'm not mistaken, Grambling, this should be their last. I think it's the last conference series because next week I think it wraps it up for just everybody who's completed the conference. Grambling 15-7, Texas Southern 9-10, Prairie View 8-10, Arkansas Pine Bluff 2-17. It's just been a dismal year for UAPB.
And we all know and love Carlos. He's one of our favorites.
Carlos James now.
Yes, sir. Yeah, Carlos James. Not Carlos. We love Carlos Brown too. but if you were to remove the mics, and if you were to remove the cameras, and if you were to just talk to him man to man, I personally believe he would tell you they don't deserve to be in the tournament.
No, well, he shouldn't.
I mean,
I would agree with that.
And if it were Prairie View in that position, as much as I love Prairie View, I will support Prairie View to hell and high water. But if you don't deserve it, you don't deserve it. If we're talking about keeping the integrity of the conference and the credibility of the conference from the outsiders, you already know what you're up against. And we're already struggling with RPIs. How can people take us serious about the sport of baseball if we create these wiggles and wrinkles just to say we did it this way? You adjust it, and that, like you say, they pay them the big bucks to make the hard decisions and the tough choices. And you man up, woman up, and you explain why you did, and you move on to the next challenge.
And speaking of the next challenge, can anybody challenge? Oh, yeah. All righty, listeners. I'm giving Jackson State credit in baseball. You want me to turn flips? My goodness.
Turn that flip. Turn that flip.
Alabama State 16-5. Boy, Jack State goes into Montgomery and take game one of a 3-game series. And Jackson State, winners of 15 in a row, 2 games back. Wow. And then, of course, Alabama and them.
You don't even talk about Alabama State's baseball program and how they've been consistent.
Well, you know what? I learned a lesson not to talk against them because a few years ago, when they were just tearing the conference up,
right?
They were on a terrific winning streak. Somebody said, "Oh, they got to win the tournament." Then they get to the tournament and basically don't lose the game.
Right. Right.
Somebody still say, well, okay. Somebody say, well, now I guess I'll finally give them the credit.
No,
that was me. And I was saying Alabama State, I wasn't impressed. So,
you know what's the beauty about baseball? Why it's hard to be blown away and impressed? Because baseball is a game of repetition, and it's about muscle memory. Okay. Mm-hmm. And when you do the same thing over and over again, you almost become blind and a robot and doing what you do. And it looks effortless when it's done right. And people be like, oh, I can get out there and do that until, guess what? They get out there and try to do it. And when you're that consistent as Alabama State has done, they've changed coaches and they're still producing a quality product. Well, I can challenge you right now. You go and look at their baseball budget compared to all the other baseball budgets, and I'd be willing to bet you a year's salary that if they're not the top, they're up in the top 2 or 3 programs that reinvest in baseball. They understand it. They have been the most consistent team that give these Power 5 teams hell on these midweek games. And they have a strong reputation as far as being a quality baseball program, regardless of who does. But you know what? If you look and connect the dots, they got a direct line to the Dominican Republic. A direct line. And we understand that these young men are living, eating, sleeping, and breeding baseball all day long and twice on Sunday. They understand. See, we have the the native homeland student athlete, he believes what mommy and daddy tells him, that you're the best thing since sliced bread. You need a full ride, and for anybody that's listening, full rides in baseball are dead. You will never get a kid on a full baseball scholarship ever again. The dynamics have just changed that much. So you get these humbled, hungry kids who understand they just want an opportunity to get an education. They want an opportunity to perhaps go to the next level. And what better way could I get that than a proven program that's going to give me the opportunity to shine in and out the classroom?
Well, I think JSU has an excellent chance to win the series this weekend. Let's see if Alabama State can do the same thing, the challenge that we put to Southern. Can they bounce back? Although they didn't lose by 12 runs. But
oh, bro, get over that. That ain't nothing.
Pretty much Alabama State, they are the program. They've dominated the East, and they've dominated in the conference. But thanks a lot, CB. CB says JSU has pitching for a change.
But that's what I'm saying. Pitching is the end-all, be-all. I don't care what your program is, what division it is. It all boils down to pitching, which I'm going back, and I thought I got through this. That's why these Power Fives, man, they want to jump to 22 scholarships so they can suck up all the pitching, and we have to revert back to T-ball. Put the ball on a tee and hit it, because we can't have anyone that can throw it across the plate. That's what it all boils down to, pitching, brother. Yeah,
and I remember going to NCAA regionals, and I think I've shared this before. The opening pitcher, game one pitcher, pretty much does well.
Right.
But in this conference, I go to a specific performance by Chase Reshore, although he transferred in to Southern University. He is pitching a masterful game, a left-hander. He doesn't have a 98-mile-per-hour fastball, but he had good location on his repertoire of pitches. And you could hear a pin drop in Alex Box Stadium. And when they went to and I remember Kadar makes that long stride out there, and he goes out there and Richard, he wants the ball, and I think it's the seventh inning. A masterful performance. Another left-hander when Southern defeats LSU, Finney, this year. Anyway, goes to the bullpen, and the rest is history. Southern's up 2-0. They lose like 7-2, 9-2, something like that. And so I said all this to say, pitching quantity versus quality. You remember Jackson State went to ULL?
Oh,
yeah. Years ago?
Oh, yeah.
Won that ball game. But then when you get to the bullpen, then you get to the second game in the double elimination, then that's where you really see the difference in pitching.
Yes, sir. You know what qualifies an outstanding pitcher? I couldn't. You're the baseball guru. No, but it's a simple approach. See, people are fascinated at how hard an individual throws, or they're discouraged on how soft an individual throws. But what qualifies an outstanding pitcher is the ability for that pitcher to throw strikes when they have to. See, the art of hitting is not about hitting strikes all the time. The pitcher's job is to throw the hitter's timing off. And any way he can throw the hitter's timing off, whether it's a breaking ball that looks like it's going to come across the plate, then it breaks out the strike zone. That guy swings and misses. Or the guy is looking outside and you bust him inside and he fouls it off. And then when that batter begins to think instead of reacting, that's when you know you're pitching. It doesn't matter how hard you're throwing. It doesn't matter how soft you're throwing. It matters if you can throw a strike when you need to throw a strike. And if you can tickle the black, and the black is nothing but the the black trim around the 17-inch plate. If you can tickle that black, and a good umpire will give a guy who has control and the ability to know that he can throw a strike when he wants to, he'll start getting that lean on just a little bit off the plate, or a little bit in on the plate, a little bit low in the zone, a little bit high in the zone even, but mostly in, out, and low. He'll get those breaks because he's shown consistency. They're not worried about how hard he throws. Trevor Huffman, one of the greatest relief pitchers in all of Major League Baseball. His best pitch was a changeup at 77 miles an hour. He threw an 83 mile an hour fastball, which is considered pus in the Major League Baseball, but they could not hit him because he had control and could throw a strike when he needed to.
Well, that's what happened at that regional game I was telling you about. And then you bring in a relief guy who has got a live arm. He's throwing 90. I've had people to tell me that play baseball that fastball is probably the easiest pitch to hit.
Yes.
Especially if this person told me one of the keys was having good location with it.
That's what I'm saying. The ability to throw strikes when you need to. If I
can come up there just saying I'm just out overpower the hitter a lot of times, and you're
gonna have whiplash. You're gonna be looking on the other side of that ball.
Ben McDonald was the same way.
Yeah.
In the World Series, back to back home runs. He's 6'7". He just overpowering people, but not that day. Not that day. But this is interesting. But we must take a top of the hour break, and it'll be more baseball. Get ready. I'm thinking about maybe the NBA playoffs, which gets not too much action, but baseball, SWAC baseball. We're going to get a third person's opinion on the race, and if everybody still wants to weigh in, who do you think an early pick? Who's the favorite? Who's hot? Who's not? Can Southern University win the West? Will Jackson State overtake Alabama State? Will Grambling State University be heard from? SWAC baseball tournament is coming up very shortly. We'll take a time out. When I come back, visit with Charles Edmond of the Alcorn State Radio Network. You're listening to the Carlos Brown Show on the Open Mic Broadcast Network and Spreaker.com.
Hello, this is Lonzo Hardy, Vice President of the SWAC Alumni Association. The SWAC Alumni Association is an organization founded in 1999 with the goal of enhancing the great legacy of excellence in the SWAC as well as preserving the athletic heritage of the SWAC. Its membership is open to former athletes as well as current and former coaches, assistant coaches, athletic administrators, referees, employees of conference member institutions, as well as fans of SWAC sports. Individuals interested in gaining membership can contact the organization's president, Roscoe Nance, at 509 Worcester Street in Herndon, Virginia, 20170. Annually, the SWAC Alumni Association holds a Legends Award in which Lifetime Achievement Awards are presented. Occasionally, a legend of the conference is honored in a roast, and annually 1 or 2 former student athletes are presented degree completion scholarship awards. Contact the organization's president, Roscoe Nance, at 509 Worcester Street in Herndon, Virginia, 20170.
How you doing? This is Mike Prince, the radio guy. I want to thank you so much for joining us on our daily content and programming, and serve as a reminder that you can listen to the Carlos Brown Show live here on the network 10 a.m. to 12 noon Central Standard Time each and every Saturday. Carlos Brown is a seasoned, legendary sports talk show host based in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, but we're not going to hold that against him. Join the Carlos Brown Show live on the Open Mic Broadcast Network 10 a.m. to 12 noon.
hour number 2 of the Coles Brown Show, heard exclusively right here on the Open Mic Broadcast Network and Spreaker.com. Introduce guests for hour number 2, no stranger, Charles Edmond of the Alcorn State Radio Network. Charles, good morning to you.
Good morning, Carlos. How's your voice?
Well, I'm here. I'm here and I'm doing better, but hey, the show goes on. And it's not true to the rumors that I'm so anti-tournament that I got sick for having a nasty attitude about the tournament.
Oh, really?
No, I was just being facetious there.
Oh, okay.
No, but I've been called many things, but anti-tournament, yeah, I was called that by a Texas Southern fan a few years ago.
Wow. Yeah, I know that's not true.
Well, I mean, you know, we're here to talk SWAC baseball, but Dr. Prince talked about something that you had texted me about a few days ago. We have another team not eligible or ineligible for the SWAC baseball tournament, and you texted me it was Mississippi Valley State. So Dr. Prince said they're having a press conference Monday, and they'll decide how they're going to structure the SWAC baseball tournament. Get your thoughts on that.
Yeah, when Dr. Prince actually called me about it, I hadn't heard anything of it at that time, and I knew that we would be playing Valley this weekend. So I talked to Coach Aaron Stevens, Valley's head baseball coach, after the game, and he actually spoke with our baseball coach, Brett Richardson, before the game, and he had told him that they were ineligible. And I talked to him after the game yesterday, and he did again confirm that. He said he was told 2 weeks ago that his team was ineligible. And I asked him, was it due to APR issues? And he couldn't really say one way or the other. Typically, and the reason why I would think it's APR, but it's kind of strange, is because usually teams that are ineligible due to APR, you would know that way in advance. I mean, like last year, we knew Alabama A&M was ineligible due to APR well before baseball season started. So, I mean, what Coach Stevens told me, he was told well before the season started that his team was good to go. And then his administration tells him a couple of weeks ago that they're not. And I would have to assume it's APR. He didn't really go into it, but it's kind of unfortunate. And now you talked about the restructuring of the tournament. It's kind of unfortunate for Valley because I think they would have been a pesky team and a tough out in the tournament. They don't have a lot. They don't have a lot of players on the roster. I think they're down to 16 on the roster now, so they don't have a lot of depth. But I think they play hard, and they have a couple of good pitchers that could give teams problems. So I think Valley would have been a tough out if they were in it, but they're not. So I guess we just play on.
Well, listening to Dr. Prince in hour number 1, and kind of going through some of maybe the decisions that they're going to go through. We had a discussion about 6 teams. What else we talked about? A bye. But I'll say to you what I said to Dr. Prince. If I had a vote on the situation, which I don't, I would go with 6 teams like it used to be. 6 teams and truly a double elimination, but I would go with 16, just my opinion.
Yeah, I think, that's a school of thought. I think it would make it tougher, obviously, for teams. I mean, for us, for example, I mean, thank goodness that A&M wasn't eligible at the start, because we would, with where we are right now, we wouldn't have made the tournament. I mean, we would be way down in the dumps. Look at the standings in the East. So we kind of known that we would be in, but then Valley not being in. You also hear UAPB of course, they got 3 wins in their division. They would get in. I mean, I guess the SWAC will decide all of that and sort it all out on Monday. I'm anxious to see how the SWAC really, is going to make that happen.
Yeah.
I think my guess would be UAPB and Carlos James being given a lifeline because his team has definitely struggled this year, surprisingly.
Well,
but we don't know for sure. Huh?
I don't know about that. I think they should be spectators.
Well, you know it. I understand that. I mean, and they have not played well. But if they're extended that invitation, do you think they're going to turn it down?
No. No.
Yeah.
No. And I'm going to be honest with you. For whatever the reason, the injuries I know with UAPB, I've been curious about Alcorn. It seems to be a big drop from 2 years ago. I'm sure there's a reason for that. But why not go with 3 teams? 3 from the East, 3 from the West. Like I said, that would be my vote.
Yeah, I would say that if this news came down maybe early in the baseball season, that A&M and Valley would be ineligible, I think you would have all the series being played, and I think if the SWAC announced you're going with 3, your top 3, East and West, I think it would probably stick. But right now, you've got 2 series left. And I think at this point, I would think, even though people might disagree, I think probably what's going to happen, if I were a betting man, I would bet that UAPB would be in, and you got your 8 teams. And UAPB would be the 4 seed on the eastern side.
Wow. I'm glad I'm not a betting man.
That would be my guess. I might be wrong. I mean, of course, we don't know. But if I were to guess, that's probably what's going to happen just because of the late juncture of what's happened. I mean, this has happened in the last couple of weeks. You've got a bunch of series being played. And to make this kind of change at this point, I think would kind of upset the apple cart for the coaches. So I think that's probably my guess. UAPB would be in. You've got your 2 teams that are not eligible, Valley and Alabama A&M. UAPB will be the 4 seed in the East. You got your 4 teams in the West, and you just roll on. I mean, it would be strange, clearly. I mean, because UAPB would probably take on Southern in that first game. It would be strange for sure. But my guess is they'll probably just slide that over, and UAPB would be that 4 seed in the East. You already got your top 4 in the West. Just my guess.
Well, we shall see. 4 o'clock Monday? Is that correct? Press conference?
Well, they're going to do a release at 4 o'clock. Not necessarily a press.
Not even a press conference.
I don't know about a press conference, but the
information. They should have one.
Well, you call Dr. McClellan on that one. I'm just the messenger.
No, I understand, but I'm saying be right up there and be straightforward. Here's the scenario. You have reporters. I mean, I guess you could do a conference call, but you made this decision. What was the reason? A, B, C.
Well, I'm pretty sure he would be available for some Q&A after the decision has been rendered.
I'm sure he will. He's a stand-up guy. He's going to be out there. But after it's all said and done, if that scenario plays out in UAPV, they're a Western team, but they'll slide over to the East. What we do know is that they've just had a tough season. But anyway, we'll move along from that one. Kind of get you guys' thoughts on who's hot in the conference right now. We know Jackson State. We know Southern has, for the most part, been doing very well. Alabama State, Jackson State, Southern, and Grambling. 4 teams right there. Out of those 4, Charles, who do you think has the best opportunity to win it all? Or is it too early to answer that?
I think it's early. I mean, I think Southern University, they've been the talk of the whole season with what they've done, but they had it handed to them yesterday, which I think actually is a good thing. I mean, because if you're peaking right now, with the tournament 3 weeks away, you have to be worried. I'm not saying you're giving games away, but if you're peaking at this point and in the tournament, it's going to be a whole different ball game. But right now, I would say Southern University, Grambling looks like they're rounding out into shape. They beat us 14-7 the other night. But of course, you can never count out Texas Southern, the defending tournament champs. So I think on the Western side right now, I give a slight edge to Southern. But I think, Grambling clearly is playing a little bit better. And, Prairie View could be sneaky good at times, even though, for some of the scores that they had early in conference, it would dictate otherwise. I think the West is going to be the West. I mean, Southern's going to be the team that, along with Jackson, I think everyone's going to look at because they've had such great success. But the tournament, as we know, provides so much drama, and the obvious is not the obvious most of the time. You've seen the lower seeds win it, seen teams that you didn't think would knock off the top dog. That happens. That what makes the SWAC tournament what it is. So I would say on the Western side right now, I give a slight edge to Southern University, but Grambling's coming on at this point in time.
Well, and I'm going to bring up a team that, hey, they've had success, and they could be very dangerous. I've seen this team battle Southern to a couple of 1-0 games, reverse, and that's Texas Southern. I'm telling you, they have my respect, and I would not count them out. And I know we're just speculation right now because it's whoever gets hot and wins the tournament. That's who's going to represent the conference. And then Jackson State. They have pitching now. They can always hit. It seems like I won't say everyone, but they're being overlooked as a story in the conference. But and they could make some noise. So it's going to be interesting. But Texas Southern, don't count them out.
Yeah, I would say for TSU, Carlos, that, and the fact that no one is talking about him, I think for Mike Robb, that's fine with him. I mean, everybody knows he won the tournament last year. Everybody knows that, this is a team that could make some noise come May. And by the mere fact no one's talking about him, that's good for him. I think he doesn't want that attention right now. Knowing just how he thinks and how he plots and how he puts the things together for the tournament, I think it's a good thing that everyone's talking about Southern. It's a good thing that everyone's talking about Jackson. So I think for Mike Robb, he's fine with it. As far as Jackson State's concerned, I'll say this. They've won, 15 in a row? They're probably the hottest baseball team in the country right now. But one thing about Jackson State, well, a couple of things. Jackson State can always hit. They got the sticks, the bats to score as many runs as they need to score. But the one issue with Jackson State is their depth at pitching. You can get into their bullpen. They have probably 2 really good starters. If you get to that and you get into the bullpen, if you go past the number 1 guy in the bullpen, if you get to the number 3 guy, you got him. And I think Omar Johnson always puts a team together that can hit the cover off the ball in hopes that they just beat you in a submission to where, and you see the scores in this 15-game streak. They're beating, like they beat Valley 19-3. I mean, they're just beating teams to a pulp. And that's what they do, because that means that you're desperate at the plate, you're down 8-0, lack of quality at bats, and that saves their pitching. And that's the way Omar Johnson likes to play it. But if you get into their pitching where you score a ton of runs and you force them to be pressured at the plate, it's kind of a different story. And I think the last loss that they had was against Alcorn. And we beat them 18-4, where their number 2 pitcher didn't have it. They were throwing the ball all over the yard, poor at bats. We got into their pitching, and then we just scored 18 runs. I think the third most that we've ever scored against Jackson State in the history of the series between the two teams. So for Omar Johnson, we know in the tournament, it's always going to be about pitching. You're not going to score as many runs, and that's going to be the key, whether or not their pitching holds up and whether or not they can continue to score a ton of runs. If they do that, they'll be in the finals, I think.
So you don't think their pitching has improved from what you've seen?
I think their pitching is about the same. They've got 2 really good arms to start, and then the third guy, if they get 5 innings out of their number 3 starter, and if their bullpen doesn't get a lot of work, and if their hitting is on, Jackson State's going to be tough. But again, if their number 1 and 2 starters don't get it done, and he has to go deeper in his bullpen, you got guys that haven't seen a lot of work. Now, they play a lot of midweek games, and I'm sure some of those arms are being used in midweek just to get to work. But, for Jackson State, I mean, it's kind of the same template that Omar Johnson uses every year. He's going to have a lot of quality guys at the plate. He's going to have a couple of good starters, and he's got probably one good save guy. But other than that, he's just relying on his team just to hit the cover off the ball and score a lot of runs. And therefore, when you're up 8-0, 9-0, you can afford to kind of dangle a little bit and gamble with your pitching and keep your starters out there. Because he doesn't like to take the starters out of the game. I can tell you that. He wants to keep the starters in as long as possible because he knows that the deeper the team gets into his bullpen, it's going to get tougher. And I think that's what he banks on. And that's what's happened during this 15-game streak. You just look at the scores. I mean, this team's scoring a ton of runs. Lots of runs in this 15-game streak. And that's Jackson State baseball. But we know in the tournament, we saw it in the regionals when they won, where they played Louisiana Regional. They won 1-0. I mean, you're not going to score as many runs in the postseason. And you just hope your pitching holds up. And I think that's what's happening. I just think Jackson's got it going right now. Pitching, hitting, defense, it's all working right now. But in the tournament, we know the pressure's on, and it's kind of a different ball game once the tournament rolls around.
Yeah, well, I think that'll be the question a lot of teams will have to answer from as far as depth, pitching. Do you get into their bullpen? And Jackson State, really, to me, they had an impressive victory. They went into Montgomery. Now, they could lose the next 2 and lose the series, but they go into Montgomery, really had the game well in advance early on in that game, and they won 9-6 against Alabama State. So they'll play game 2 today. Scheduled yesterday, Valley over Alcorn State 3-2, Texas Southern over Prairie View 10-4, Jackson State over Alabama State 9-6, Louisville 32-1 over Alabama A&M.
Wow.
And Grambling 12, Southern 0, and according Word 12, Arkansas Pine Bluff 1. So it's going to be interesting. What we've been talking about, how many teams they're going to have. I'm getting text message from my colleagues saying that, hey, they've got to have 8 teams. Yeah, go with it, 8 teams. Whatever you have to do, if you slide Pine Bluff over, they'll do what they have to do as far as that.
Right. I think
they have to have 8 teams. Let them have 8 teams. If that's the law, yeah, okay. Hopefully you're going to have some exciting baseball with those 8 teams.
Well, I think, Carlos, to your point, though, and we've talked about this before, should the tournament stay at 8 teams?
Well, my feelings on that, Charles.
Yeah, I mean, I think we have a new crop, well, other than maybe Mike Robb, Omar Johnson, the veterans, you kind of have a new crop of coaches. And I think that discussion probably can be had now. In terms of whether or not we want to stay at 8 or go to 6. I think now, you have an opportunity with new ADs and basically new coaches in the conference to have that conversation to see if maybe that can change. And of course, Dr. McClellan being commissioner, I'm sure he'll listen to that. So I think that's something that could be talked about. I understand that Roger Cador is involved now in the SWAC in terms of the baseball tournament. I'm sure that'll be discussed as we roll along, whether or not the tournament will be in New Orleans going forward. I'm sure he'll look at that, and as Dr. McClellan has said, whatever city makes sense financially, they'll go with that. But whether or not it's 8 teams or 6, I think the discussion probably needs to be had just to throw it out there to see if there's the energy to make a change. I mean, I think in the past when you had the Beard Rays and the Cadors and Mike Robs and the Cullivans of the world, I think they were kind of dead set on keeping it as is. But I think now you've got kind of a different crop of coaches, different ideals and ideas, and maybe it could be, you at least put it out there to see if there's, you want to take the bait to make the change. We'll see, I guess.
Yeah. It'll be interesting to see what happens. You know what I've stated before in the past. I've seen 8 teams in the conference. I've seen 6. I've had some discussions with Coach Cato about being 4, ideally on the air, saying the best situation would be to have 4 teams. So you can put your proposal up, see what's the best fit. They may decide to keep it at 8. They may decide to go with 10. They can do it. It's all about what's the best position, best product you want to put out there. And in a perfect world, it would be nice to get an at-large bid, but we know that's not going to happen. Could it happen? Yeah, we've had many discussions with that. At the end of the day, who wins the tournament? And that's who will represent the conference. And we've had a lot of discussions about how important is the regular season. There are some cases, as Dr. Prince stated a couple of weeks ago. Oh, and by the way, we had Coach Banks on last week as well with Dr. McClellan. He's talked with Coach Jackson about putting some things out to proposals to make it better. You remember the discussion we had about the midweek games and playing teams that in your conference that you don't see? And I understand there's a financial situation with some of those teams playing, but you want to see more of that as well. And I just think it's good to discuss and see what will stick.
Yeah, I would.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry. I wouldn't mind seeing. I mean, I'm kind of with you. I wouldn't mind seeing, a Texas Southern playing an Alabama State during the season. I wouldn't mind seeing an Alcorn playing a Texas Southern during the season.
And you're talking about consistently play year in and year out, not once every 3 or 4 years or something.
Yeah. I would love to see that, and I think people who follow flag baseball would like to see that. I mean, now you do have. I don't know if people put a lot of stock into that MLB Invitational, in which we're in it every year, and we'll probably be in it every year. Got Southern that's in it, got UAPB that's in it, maybe a team from the East. You could rotate that around, and you could make that into something to get more teams, from the East and West to kind of use that as a showcase. But midweek games, I wouldn't mind seeing it. I know that teams are playing these non-conference games in midweek, and I don't know what type of financial that these ADs are putting these coaches under to play those games in midweek. Even though it wouldn't happen that often, I think you could probably take a weekend, a midweek or two, to make that happen. So I think it's doable. I think the calendar makes it doable. Just a question. I think that'll be more for the ADs in terms of the amount of revenue guarantees that they probably wouldn't get if they played a conference game during the midweek.
Oh, it's interesting. VW says, but that would take away from the in-state midweek games. I guess playing a fellow team in the conference during the midweek. I know a lot of games are played on a Tuesday and a Wednesday midweek, most of the time, correct?
Yeah. Like Southern LSU. With that, I'm sure something like that will probably. Well, I don't know if it's going to happen again, considering what Southern did recently against LSU. But yeah,
I'm sure they'll play again.
you could definitely make that case where we play Mississippi State, we play USM kind of in a midweek situation. So I get that, but I think there's enough midweeks in the calendar to where if you take two of them out, we could play teams in the opposite division that would count. I think we could make that work if there's just a little bit of an adjustment, an attitude adjustment, and just overall adjustment that people want to do something different. And I think now's the time to do it because you have different ADs, you have different baseball coaches, and kind of the old school way of thinking might have been different, but I think now's the opportunity to put a lot of stuff on the table, like you mentioned with Coach Banks and Coach Jackson. I think now is the time to put it out there. It may not change. I mean, people might want to keep things as is, but I think now's the time to put it out there. A whole bunch of different proposals to see if things could change.
Yeah, because I'm also hearing coaches that have come on this show, past and present, talking about starting the SWAC conference season a little bit later. So there's not that break, that lull. And then also, we were just talking about the midweek games. They count overall, correct? Correct me if I'm wrong. But they don't count in the standings. Like when Alcorn plays Grambling this year. That just counted overall. It didn't count in the standings, correct?
Correct.
Yeah, I think that's some of the stuff you got to clean up. Now, that's just my opinion. Again, if whatever they decide to do, you put it up for discussion. If it does not pass, you put a proposal. Then you live with it. That's it. But I think what Dr. Prince said early in our number one, I still would like to see in the future more emphasis put on teams that do well through their conference season in the regular season and be rewarded. I've had discussion with Coach Kadar about having teams that win the regular season or say in the East and the West get a bye. Well, give them a reward for doing well in the regular season. So once again, we come back to, and I'm sure there's points on either side where you fall at on tournament versus the regular season. And so often, we talk about the tournament and it gets all of the conversation. Yeah. Regular season is kind of like, oh yeah, they did well in the regular season, but, and I understand that's the way it is, but they've got to win the tournament. Yeah, go ahead.
I'm listening, and Charles made some valid points, but I think there are two things that would have to be addressed, and you just hit on the main one. The SWAC starts their baseball season 2 weeks ahead of most of the other conferences, and we have 2 weeks on the backside. Now, you can counter that if you set the start of the regular season 2 weeks down the road and you flip those first 2 weeks, make those your money games. You got a Tuesday, Wednesday, and a weekend series. So technically, you could play 4 games a week for those 2 weeks for your money games. And when you're talking about inter-conference or inter-divisional play, everybody plays that, I want to call it that lower tier opponent that they host at home. Instead of hosting that lower tier opponent, host that interdivisional opponent from the East or the West. And just like the little money you would give that team for traveling purposes, you do that for whoever that travel team would be to help them with their travel situation. And I believe it's something that can be worked out if they, want it worked out, and they put all reasonable minds and thoughts together. You'll still have time to play. I don't have a problem playing an NAIA division or Division II, Division III, because those schools can turn around and beat you because of the diversity of baseball. But for the sanctity of increasing your district, or not district, but conference RPI, that would go better because you're playing more conference and Division I opponents, and you make those games count, which intensifies the race from the East and the West, and it brings more credibility and validity to your baseball program throughout the conference.
I think Carlos and Dr. Prince, the reason, if I'm not mistaken, the reason why there's that 2-week cushion is because, remember, we had that 100% rule, 80%, whatever it was, and I believe that they left a cushion on the back end to try to get some of these games in case of rainouts. Now, that probably needs to be looked at, because what I'm seeing, like, we have a makeup with Bama State that we're probably not going to play. I think that needs to be looked at as well, because if you're not gonna try to get them in to play to make up these games, then the cushion, you don't necessarily need the cushion, or like you said, you can start the regular season later, to where, you know, you can play your games and not have as much of a downtime before the tournament.
Mm-hmm. Yes, sir.
I think that's the reason why they had that 2-week window built in to try to get these games in. Because remember, we had this 100% rule, and if you didn't have 100% of your division games, you weren't eligible for the tournament and all that. I think that's why they built that in. But I think what you're saying now is that teams just, if they can't get them in during that season, during that period, now they can flip it when they play that team. If they can go around and make it a 4-game series. But if Mother Nature plays havoc with that, what are you going to do? Are you going to try to reschedule? Unless it's for the division. Now, we did have that, a couple of years ago, or the last year, in which there were some makeup games at the end there that could have determined the division, if I'm not mistaken.
Right. That was the last 2 years.
The last 2 years. So I think that's the reason why they built in that 2-week window. And it may be a week too long, but I think that's the reason why they have that cushion to try to, free up the calendar to where you can get these games in if you can.
And with all that being
so
said,
that probably needs to be discussed again. Again, you got different attitudes. You got commencement exercises that are taking place around that time that could very well deter any changes. But I think that's why they have that 2-week window built in.
And I understand that, but you have 3 weekends. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
And also, guys, correct me if I'm wrong, but I want to say it again as a reference. I want to say in Southern's case, when Coach Kadar was the head coach, while he didn't like it as well, he brought up something else. Most institutions, at least I know at Southern, you're in a period where a school is out in that break between summer session. And then I want to say he brought up the financial aspect of having the team still together on campus, and they can practice and stuff, but he added a financial piece to it. Have you guys heard of that?
Well, it always boils down to money, but what I was going to respond to Brother Charles about, we also have 3 weekends through the regular season where no one are playing conference games. So you add those three weekends, which is add up basically to 9 playing days, that Friday, Saturday, Sunday, in addition to the 2 weeks off, so they can make some fine tuning and adjusting to what they need to do. And yet money is going to always be a factor, a bottom line factor. But just as money is going to always be the case, you always have to be able to come up with creative, outside-the-box thinking ways to make the right things happen. Make the right things happen.
Well, I think
also, Carl.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I agree with what Dr. Prince said there. You have to be creative with that and try to have extra revenue to help to deal with the additional expenses. And there are. Anytime you keep a team, and every school is different. Now, I don't know how the funding mechanism for each school is different, but I know for us, keeping the players on campus, staying in the dorm, they have to be fed 3 meals a day. They're going to be practicing. There's a cost involved there, and that's a relationship between athletics and the university to keep the dormitories open for those student athletes. Mm-hmm. For us, softball, like for example, the softball tournament is the weekend right after our graduation. It starts the next week, like May the 8th or May the 5th or whatever it is. But that's not really a big deal. But for baseball, it's a little bit different because the tournament starts a week and a half after that. So you have to stay busy, and unless you're playing some games, and you could probably schedule games away from home just to kind of stay loose and stay sharp. But typically, that's kind of a dead period for everybody. Some commencements are a little later than others. Ours is like May the 5th or something like that, the first Saturday in May. But everybody has their commitments at different times. But it is definitely a different dynamic for baseball, and it is a challenge. It is a challenge, especially this time of year.
Yeah, I think it would help moving the start of the conference back 2 weeks, and I base that on talking to several coaches. That would help out a lot. Lighten up the mood here, Charles. You may appreciate this. Listener just said, all I'm going to say about Alcorn baseball is bring Coach Ray back. Oh boy, you can hear I'm straining laughing, but
it's tough. I'll say this: it is tough. And I think you asked about the state of Alcorn baseball. It's a tough year. It's a tough year for Coach Richardson. Our best hitter broke a finger. He's expected back maybe next week. Yes, he can give us something. If not, trying to keep him on the shelf. The depth of pitching. Yesterday against Valley, committed 5 errors. They had 1 inning in which they scored the 3 runs. We lost 3-2. And that's just been kind of the way it's been going. Our margin for error is very small. Not saying you got to play a perfect game, but you got to make the routine plays, and that's been a struggle all year. Our number 1 starter has been pushed to Sunday because he struggled. So it's definitely a struggle for Alcorn baseball this year. We can look really good at times against Grambling, score 7 runs. And if you score 7 runs, you should be able to win the game, especially at home. But we just make too many mistakes. And against, good teams, Grambling's a solid team. They're going to make you pay for it. Against Southern, I think we lost 11 or 12-0. We had some chances there early on. So right now, it's definitely a struggle. I understand the fans' frustration there. It's a struggle right now, and we just hope that we can play out that baseball comeback, because that's what it's all about right now. We got Jackson next week. Just try to tinker with the roster a little bit, put the players in the best position to win, and just got to get it done.
Well, we've got another listener. Appreciate it. Says, Carlos, I like that idea. Move the start of the season back 2 weeks. And again, I just base that on, talking to people who knows a lot about baseball, more about baseball than I know. Former coaches, Brother Michael Prince, he's a baseball guru. Hey, but I'm sure they'll work it out, because at the end of the day, you want to have the best SWAC baseball that you can have, and the things you can't control that goes on the field. Hey, the diamond you may not can control, but the things outside the diamond that you can't control, hey. And as always, you discuss it, put the proposal together, and then you vote on it. Gets voted down, hey, it is what it is. It's a democratic society. Or some would say not really, but you get my drift. Baseball, and then the SWAC baseball tournament. Guys, I am so interested to see where this thing ends up. Dr. Quinlan says it's all about the money. Show me the money. I think this time next year could be playing somewhere else, or getting ready to play somewhere else. I've heard Biloxi, I've heard Memphis, centralized location. I wonder if Jackson will put in a bid, Jackson, Mississippi. Now, Charles, don't say Alexandria, Louisiana, okay? it's not, although I remember the term of being there.
Yeah. Yeah.
I remember. I'm telling you.
I will say this. Pull out a map with the interstates on it. Look at I-20. Look at the states of Texas, Louisiana, Mississippi, and Alabama. Anything south of I-20 in those 4 states, I'm all for it. Anything north of I-20 in those 4 states, I'm not for it. I know Memphis has been mentioned. I know Little Rock has been. This is past now. This is kind of old news. But Little Rock has been mentioned in the past. Memphis has been mentioned in the past. Alexandria has been mentioned in the past. And we keep talking about the SWAC footprint. I don't think there's a SWAC footprint for baseball. And I think the SWAC tournament should be in one of 4 places. New Orleans. I like New Orleans, even though I've heard that the cost of the expense of being in New Orleans for teams travel, that's a little pricey. I think that can be worked out of sorts. Jackson, it's been in Jackson before. Biloxi, they got a minor league ballpark there. I've been there twice. The same guy, Tim Bennett, that brought the Mississippi Braves to Jackson, also helped build that new ballpark in Biloxi. And Heinz Field in Baton Rouge.
Yeah, I think wait a minute. I got to give me a sip of something, not water.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, again, we have a new crop of coaches. Now, we know our good friend Barrett Ray. We love Barrett Ray. You know, Barrett Ray was not a big supporter of tournament in Baton Rouge and Heinz Field because it was kind of home cooking. That was the kind of the discussion around the league. But again, you know, we got a new crop of coaches. And I'll say this, and I'm being selfish when I say this, I think that Heinz Field was the best venue for it. It was perfect in terms of seating capacity. It was a great environment, great atmosphere, great food, great camaraderie. I thought Heinz Field was terrific. And I think for those who were there and were a part of it for the years it was there, I think they would agree with me. And I think if it comes back, especially with the way Southern baseball is right now, I think you would see the good times back at Heinz Field again. That's just my opinion.
Michael Prince, did you hear what y'all just said, Baton Rouge? I didn't hear you fall out the chair over there.
Well, because I had my mic down. That's why you didn't hear me fall out the chair. You know what? That
sounds like hesitation in your voice.
No, it's not hesitation. When you know the history of the direction of Dr. McClellan's vision of thinking and knowing what's on the table, and as I begin to sit up and listen to you guys discuss this, do not be surprised if this tournament ends up in Birmingham. Do not be surprised.
Okay, wake me up when it's time to... Okay, go ahead.
No, I'm just saying, right now, Birmingham has a second lease on life to attract the Southwestern Athletic Conference. They had marginal success with the basketball tournament. They are willing to work with the conference to try to even bring football on a consistent basis there. So don't think they won't try to work out something in Birmingham where the headquarters are located. Because in theory and thinking, your championships should be, I guess, where your headquarters are located. You would think. But I'm not throwing out the window Birmingham, Alabama. That's just me thinking outside loud.
Well, again, based on what Dr. McClellan said last week on the show, any place that puts together the best financial package. So what city does it? What mayor gets with his sports foundation, city council? And then Birmingham has been mentioned before. My thing was because they've got a new mayor, and I got a chance to meet him last year, if I'm not mistaken, at SWAC Football Media Day. Young guy. Because, you know, the last time the tournament, the football championship left Birmingham, it didn't leave under some of the folks in Birmingham not having a hissy fit, if you get my drift. Now, I know there's different leadership now, but as Ted DiBiase would say, everybody has a price. and that's what McClellan is saying. Show me the money.
Well, the same holds true for the baseball tournament in Shreveport. We left there not in good favor, and I actually enjoyed the tournament in Shreveport. I thought it was a central location for all the schools. It hit those demographics that Charles just mentioned as well.
Yeah, I enjoyed the tournament. We won our only baseball championship in Shreveport. So, I mean,
You got a
I would
biased
not
reason why you want to go back then,
Yeah,
Chuck.
I enjoyed Shreveport for other reasons. But I'm gonna say this about Birmingham. This is something that just hit, that was in the news recently. There was a proposal to build an MLB style ballpark similar to the one in New Orleans in Birmingham that the city and the county shot down. And I understand that if it's close to the SWAC headquarters, it's not as expensive on the SWAC's side of it, even though Texas Southern Prairie View would be a long trip for them. I was there when the tournament was in Birmingham, and it just didn't seem to work. Now, that was then. This is now. I mean, it's like you said, different attitude, different ideas, different people in charge. I would kind of put Birmingham kind of on the back burner of it. I don't know if the support is there in that area for SWAC baseball. I mean, I don't know if Alabama State and A&M still play that one game at Rickwood Park, the old ballpark there. I did a couple of games there. I don't know if that really went over well or not. I would put Birmingham last on that list that I gave, even though financially for the conference it might make better sense to have it there. I'm just not sure if Birmingham supports baseball other than the SEC baseball tournament. I mean, that's in Hoover. That's a whole other venue, 20 minutes from Birmingham. So I'm, for just me personally, I'm not convinced that SWAC baseball sells in Birmingham. This is just my opinion. And I think with Roger Cador being over the baseball tournament planning in terms of, what's the best fit financially, I think Cador was put over that recently. I wonder, does he still have the attitude, Carlos, that Heinz Field is the best? Because, he thought the tournament never should have left Southern University, if you remember. Now, I don't know. If things have changed, if attitude has changed. I mean, I'm just being selfish when I say that I think New Orleans, I think the cost of just, being in New Orleans from a travel perspective, hotels and all that, I think that's what's worrying the coaches. I know the dugouts, they talked about the dugout sizes there at that ballpark, and it is small, by the way. But I think if discussions can be had to where the dugouts can be expanded, you got artificial turf there. The field drains great, and when it rains 20 minutes later, you're playing. I think that helps. New Orleans is New Orleans. It's a draw. So I think if those things get worked out, I can see New Orleans being, the long-term home of the tournament. But, everyone else is going to Jackson, it's been in Jackson. But then you got to look at Conference USA having their baseball tournament there at the Braves ballpark. Would it be at Bob Braddy Field at Jackson State? Would it be at Smith-Wheel Stadium? I mean, that still has to be worked out. So I think Jackson logistically has some things going, to see if where it would be. But, for me, I like New Orleans. I like Baton Rouge. Jackson's close to home for me, so I wouldn't have an issue with that either. But what would be the best draw? What would be the best draw?
On that note, we'll have to continue this discussion at a later time, but you can continue on social media talking about it. And, boy, I see people weighing in now. You got to love it. It's no wrong or right answer. Sometimes it's just how you feel about it. I want to thank Dr. Michael Prince, Charles Edmond, everyone who listened, everyone who sent in a text message. Appreciate all of you. Until next Saturday at 10 a.m., have a great weekend. Peace and God bless.